1.
Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on June 21st, 2024 at approximately 4:30 p.m. PST. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I build myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies I guide virtually every movement I make by. Now, I know these tools will work for you because they continue to work for me and have literally worked for thousands of other people over the years with varying degrees of success depending on their own personal efforts. Now, we decided that this week, we are going to take a look at a much more complicated setup and much more simplistic at the same time than what Earth is used to. And that is the layout of the Galactic Consortium. Now, I could do a whole pile of comparisons, but what I'm going to do is we're just going to take a look at things and see what we can see, how well we can lay it out. And if I could see my glasses, that would help. Okay, and I do believe, yep, amazing. I remember to shut all my doors. Renee, how you doing? You are in with the gold. And Philip, right in behind Renee, you're in with the silver, followed by Joe Stewart is in with the bronze. Talking about starting off on a run. Now, and people keep asking, what is going on with all the aliens? Are we in trouble? Are we in danger? Well, let's be clear about one little detail, and I'm not going into it very much. If any individual alien race, never mind the entire consortium, if any one of them or any one of the ancient races were interested in taking the planet over, the war would be over before you guys even heard it was taking place. Okay, I mean, that's just the reality behind it. But mankind has produced some movies that are actually reasonably well, but we're going to have done reasonably well in laying it out. But Philip, you're going to love this one, because I'm only touching this one for half a moment. Humans eat each other, whether you guys like it or not. There are cannibals still on the planet. We're not here to discuss people's diets. Okay, not today. The nice little part about it. Now, that's interesting. Anyway. Now, humans have a problem getting along on one planet. Okay, the Galactic Consortium is comprised of roughly a minimum of 2,500 member races. Never mind a bunch. Scratch that. A minimum of 2,500 different species. LA, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, the neat part about it is this. When you take a look at the consortium, I cannot give you a starting time for when it happened. I'm not entirely certain when it started. Nobody seems to really know. Okay, but there are some sidelines to that. The one very important thing we have to remember is that when the consortium started, it was because one race. Now, do not ask me which one. I'm pretty certain they're extinct at this point. Okay, because some races do end up that way. But one of them got around. Oh, missed that one coming in. Kevin, how you doing? Glad you could join us, because I don't think I saw you come in, did I? Nope. And if I miss somebody coming in, absolutely my apologies, but that's kind of the way that works on occasion. Storm, glad to see you're here. Rest assured, I'm hoping that we don't have any complications this time. As far as these geniuses come in here to cause a problem. Okay, just throwing down the bomb. Now, when it started, I don't know, but what ended up happening is one race millennia ago, lost somewhere in the annals of antiquity, okay, is when it started. Okay, one race managed to get a one world government together. Okay, now do understand, one world government does not mean dictatorship, contrary to popular belief. Now, what do we got here? Well, this is one of those things I kind of have to deal with. My apologies for that. There we go. Like I said, there's only 3 calls that it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I drew my 2 boys and my other half. Other than that, everybody else can wait. Now, one race long ago came up with a one world government. They managed to bring peace to their planet. Now, we got to understand, one world government does not mean dictatorship. Essentially, humans got it right when they set up the UN, when they set up the superstructure for the UN. You got people that live up in the north, they're never going to understand what it's like to live. You know, if you live in ice and snow, you're never going to get what it feels like to live in a rainforest. Now, you might be able to compensate in a desert, okay, and vice versa. So what this planet did was it turned around and said, okay, we will take one representative from each area, you know, from each topic, and not from each environmental setup. And I think that's Joseph. Joseph, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, first and foremost, we have to remember we've got to take a look at a couple of things. Okay. By the way, just so you're aware, because I'm seeing some questions come in that I could technically get sidetracked with, but I've got a list of things here that we've got to look at. Now, one world government, each environmental area, i.e., desert, sandy desert, snow-covered desert, rainforest, high mountains, low mountains, underground, they put representatives from each environment, you know, from a community on each environment into their government. When we talk about a one world government, yes, they had a speaker, like one person that would simply go, okay, I'll make sure, you know, I'll keep an eye on things and make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak. That is their job, not to make decisions. Okay. And in all fairness, it's not a question of, oh, you get promoted to that. It's like, okay, you're here, you can handle it. Depending on who we're dealing with. But here's what ended up happening. They got the government up and running, ran through a number of hiccups, not the least of which was finding out that some of the races, some of the different areas were prejudiced, okay, against other ones. As you can well imagine, we've got the same problem on Earth. People look at somebody and go, oh, you're black, so you're a bad color. Oh, you're not sleeping with the same person I want to sleep with the same type of person, so you're bad. And the list goes on. In case you hadn't noticed, prejudice runs rampant. Okay, now that has been propagated not around, across our world, and it was across theirs until they figured something out. Okay, no matter what you look like. Okay, no matter what you look like, you all have the same value. This is what they figured out. And when they got that sorted around, all of a sudden their one world government brought actual peace to the planet. Now understand, peace has never, in recorded history, to the best of my knowledge, war has never brought peace. War brings quiet. But beneath that quiet, there is invariably, almost invariably, some group of people that are going, I'm not happy, and they'll continually cause complications until you come back to the civil war again, or a global war. And okay, so this is why I say war does not bring peace. Okay, but this one race, and I don't know which one, got it worked out, and it's like, okay, we now have global peace. Now, humans did it 50,000 years ago. We had global peace, but not because of a one world government. It was because humans developed a neural net, as in they were in constant communication, mentally speaking, with everybody on the planet, not a hive mind, just open communication. Eliminated prejudice, fear, famine, you name it, it went the way of the dodo bird. This one race did it without telepathy. Now, some of them had telepathy, the ability to communicate by mind, but not all of them. So they had to come up with a working method of going, okay, what are we dealing with? How are we going to make this work? Well, on a global level, it was relatively easy. You could talk because everybody had the same basic route. This is where the communication line started up. Okay. One of the nice little things about it is when this species pieced it all together, they went, okay, number one, you do not get elected, period, if you're prejudiced in any functional way. Now, do understand, prejudice and dislike are two very different things. Okay, like let's say, for instance, you don't like the fact that somebody's behavior is to go out and beat the heck out of somebody. This is not prejudice. You don't like the fact that, if you go, oh, because they've got this difference, it's okay to beat them up. Okay, that's why you start looking at prejudice. Now, I'm not going to bother you with looking into a dictionary. Okay, but I will tell you, this one race figured out that for people to functionally govern a world, they had to have no prejudice. They had to look at other people and go, okay, yeah, you come from the deep south where it's really hot and it's really windy, and I come from the mountains from a valley where we get virtually nothing in the way of wind distortion because we live in caves. But that doesn't make you better than me. It doesn't make me better than you. So they turned around, figured this out. Then when they started getting out to, and understand, they got global government before they got functionally into outer space. They got into orbit. Okay. And they had their space race, the whole 9 yards. It was wonderful. Okay. Until they found out that, oh, look, we're getting off the planet. We've managed to get inside the galaxy. And now, because we're going to go colonize new planets. But we still fight tooth and nail. And this is evidence because we're at war in space. All this does, and they figured it out before they made a mess of it. Okay. Hopefully mankind will do the same thing. I just am not holding my breath. And they went, look, we've got to cure the war problem here before we head out there. So they worked together. They slowed their space race down. and turn to social issue in order to bring things up to balance. Therefore, when they finally got off the planet and they went and they started to develop the consortium, it was kind of an accident when it happened, because the first race they ran into, they had their conflicts and there was a lot of discussion. We are not talking about something that took 5 years. We are talking about a process that literally took hundreds of years to pull together. Now the nice little part about this is over the centuries, while they got things started, they streamlined it where they came to understand that no matter what species they were looking at, in other words, in human terms, human, monkey, ape, dog, jellyfish, all had the same right. Okay, and yes, it comes back to karmic law. See, karmic law applies to everybody, even the one that many of you refer to as God. Okay, and the 3 karmic laws, and these are the only 3 I follow. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. By following this, okay, what they found was all of the different species could get along. And this was critical. Okay, now understand, when we look at humans, species would be human. Race would be, as far as I gather it, race would be African, China, Oriental, Caucasian, and there's probably several others. Okay, I'm not going to go trying to break it all down. The point being, because of where people evolve, the species did break off, and there are certain discrepancies. But they're one species because they're able to intermix without hiccups. So the consortium started to grow. And every time they made new contact, didn't matter who did it. Okay, every time they made new contact, they went through the same process of figuring out how to communicate, how to get along, and how to understand each other. Okay, and over the course of this week, we are going to be dealing with the process they managed to work with there. Need that. Yes, I've got my wonderful little list here. But jump ahead a few thousand years, because let's face it, the consortium has been around for a very long time. Okay, now mankind has only been around for a couple of million years. Okay, as far as man as we understand it, or some early proximity thereof. So one of the things that we have to realize is to take 2,500 different species and get them to agree. They had to come up with a number of things that happened. So the first thing they found out was, before they bring a new race in, that race has to have a global government, a one world government. Now, before I go further, I'm just going to go back up here. I didn't want to get too terribly sidetracked. Now, scroll all the way back up and come back down, just in case there are questions that are necessary. Okay. Now, when I look down here, like I said, diet, I will tell you, diet changes from species to species. Think about it. On Earth, a jellyfish will not eat a steak, period. Okay? And for that matter, carnivores won't go and eat jellyfish unless by pure accident. Now, I'm not sure what this was meant to indicate here. Well, and I'm just debating. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. And here's a question for all of you out there. Okay. When a question comes in that doesn't make sense, that isn't clear, in your opinion, does it make any sense to try and figure it out? Okay, as far as my trying to respond to it. So I just figured I'd ask. Because one of the things about positive perceptions here, about this live stream, is you guys, you've got to feel safe. Okay. That is just a critical issue here in my eyes. Now, one of the neat things here is when they started interacting with other races, they came to the understanding that the first rule of thumb was if they didn't have a global government, way too many problems will arise. Because one part of the world would say, hey, you gave them this, we want to equal the battlefield. The consortium found that promoting war was a great way to wipe out a community. Okay, useless for bringing peace. Absolutely, fully useless. Okay, unless you call it peace because everybody's dead and nobody's arguing. If you want to use that for definition of peace, it works. Okay. I'm just scrolling down here a little. This one I will sort out. Philip has asked, will the Galactic Consortium be defeated by the Galactic Trading Union? The answer there is, in my opinion, unequivocally no, but understand, neither will the Galactic Consortium be defeated by the Galactic Trading Union, nor will the Galactic Trading Union be defeated by the Galactic Consortium. Understand, the Trading Union is an organization inside the consortium. It is not one vying for power. Okay, it is a conglomeration of people working towards making sure trade relations go properly. One of the first things they figured out, okay, when the trade union started figuring things out, the first thing they did was go, okay, on this planet you've got a 24-hour clock. On that planet, it takes you an extra 300 rotations of the planet. So the trading union went, we're done. You're going binary. Okay. And therefore, okay, what they did was they made all trading take place on a binary clock. Okay. And, it's the easiest way I can explain it. Honestly, it's a lot more complicated than that because it's a triphasic binary. Okay, past, present, and future all take place at the same time, but it still works with a binary clock. Okay, there is no daylight savings. There is no, you gotta wait till the sun comes up to open. Way too many variables. So bearing in mind the consortium is completely networked on a technological base, they went, okay, here's what we've got. You're working binary. Okay. And that's just the way it is. You want to tap into this whole setup, here's the clock you're using. Your clock on your own planet, do what you will. But when working with interplanetary, interconsortium issue, you're using this clock. Okay, eliminated a whole lot of problems. And what they turned around and did was said, okay, you get to operate on your clock, absolutely. But you want to get in touch with somebody that doesn't operate on that clock, there's no problem. You're using the binary one. Okay, you want to get a hold of them, you'll get up when they're up. Not everybody has to stay closed. There is no daylight savings time. There's no planetary savings time. And rest assured, it gets really screwy when you start dealing with primary star systems. And yes, I'm still trying to work out the way to describe that properly. Most people understand binary, but I'll tell you, the planetary orbits in a trinary system are phenomenal. But the consortium itself, first of all, figured that part out. Okay, as it started to evolve, they simply went to an electronic, method of tracking time. Even the length of time you're in office. We'll get to that in about 30 seconds here. Okay, even the amount of time you're in office, because the office does change. But let's just scan down here and make sure we didn't miss something here. Oh, whoa. First rule of thumb. Okay, was informed someone that has a lot of people know in this channel and in the phenomenon community work with a certain government north of the border. Here's a news flash for you. There's a lot of them that work with people south of the border, east of the border, west of the border. We are talking about a global community. Okay, so the issue that somebody works with people north of the border, well, of course they do. Okay, they're on the planet. It kind of goes hand in hand. Now, Joe Stewart Wang has made a comment. He did this a little time ago, and I can't give you a time. But he goes, I just want to share this on here. I was in the shower today at 2 p.m. Eastern, and I distinctly heard a male voice say quite loudly, hey, I'm going to assume it was my man. Oh, say hey. And Joe goes on to say, I'm going to assume it was my male spirit guide. Good assumption, quite frankly. If you've got a male voice, very few of them will interrupt if they aren't trying to make some sort of connection in the first place. And Ellie goes, I feel less irritated by the slowness of humans. I'll tell you, the Arborians take a lot longer to communicate. And the elementals, when you look at the Waylosh, the Holic, they both, and the Cordon, all take phenomenal amounts of time to talk. Not to mention people like the Gaboran. Okay, you get used to the idea that some are scattered and some are very focused. Joe goes, it's interesting that you say that cannibalism still exists on Earth. Interesting, yes, but it's not something I personally have any interest in. Some communities still look at it that way. And that's just the way it is. It doesn't make them less, doesn't make them worse. Well, Philip, I will give you that. Philip goes, war is great for weapon sales. Yeah, except for one little detail. It keeps on wiping out the people you're trying to sell to. Yeah, here's a neat little thing, Philip. Philip goes, I thought the Galactic Trading Union had means to do a coup. Technically, they do, but here's the little problem with that. Okay, let's just assume for a half a nanosecond that was the case. And somebody goes, oh, we've got this union up and running. This makes it a governmental setup. When you are dealing with members of the consortium, okay, if you break consortium law, if you try and take over forcibly another planet or another community, okay, and there's no negotiation, you're just trying to pull that off. The consortium itself, and I forgot to look it up. I've got it written around here somewhere, but I will for tomorrow. The government, the consortium hub, literally will go to the planet of the primary government. So in this case, it would be wherever the Galactic Trading Union was set up. Okay, wherever they were operating out of. the consortium would go to that planet and blow the planet up. They would do exactly the same thing to the secondary governmental seat and the tertiary. Now, this is as soon as they find out that this is being planned. Now, we got to remember, we have this neat little glitch. Some of the species out there are fully long-distance telepathic. Hiding from them is not a viable option. Okay, but again, a coup is just another name for we want to go to war because I want control. The consortium is based on an equal, input. When you take a look at the speaker, at the Speaker of the House, if you will, in the consortium, all they're there for is to make note of who's got their hand up or who's got their light on to say they want to have a say, and it's the speaker that keeps that in order. Okay, works out really well. Unlike in the UN, and I've seen this happen. I'm sure some of you guys have seen it. The UN, the House of Commons, whatever governmental body we're talking about. Okay, people start screaming at each other. If they don't feel they're getting heard. What the heck? Oh, hi. If people in the human UN or what have you, they will start screaming at each other to talk over top. The speaker in the consortium simply goes, okay, you're yelling, so we mute you. You're yelling, so we mute you. You're yelling, we mute you. And then he'll go and open them up one at a time. And yes, if it gets out of hand, he has a button. He just hits the button. Everybody's now mute. Okay. Now, this is why there is no, you are the speaker. Okay. And you're a speaker for X amount of time. Okay. The speaker is the one is the one person that actually floats depending on who it is, depending on what's going on. But that's why a coup won't work. Kind of eliminates it. And away we go. It is severe. But let me ask you, Phil goes, that's severe. Storm is effective. The reality is humans have this really odd crossover. We've got severe punishment. You broke a law that we're not happy with, so we're going to put you on death row. But we're not going to pull the plug. The consortium is really quick at it. Yes, it does mean a lot of innocent people get terminated in the process. Absolutely it does. Okay, but it's a trade-off. You eliminate a number of innocent people, or you end up having an intergalactic war. Okay, or an inter-universal war. Take your pick. Which one's going to cause more damage? Ultimately, then, Philip, yes, a muter-in-chief puts it quite the same. So this is why a coup won't work. Now, we bring that all around in circle, and we start looking at the council itself. Now, the Council of 12, okay, there is a reason for the Council of 12. Now, we have to go back to the configuration of reality here. You've got 12 dimensions, okay, and we'll get into that, not today, but we'll get into the breakdown of the different dimensions. And by the way, every one of those dimensions is equally important to the unified conversion. Okay, that's one of the things we end up with. Uh-oh. Yeah, LA's just talking about old school training. Where you were told, keep quiet, or side effects. And the neat part about it, I like this. LA goes, fair didn't figure into it. Here's the thing. if you look at the idea of fair, fair means it applies to everyone, not it applies to just those people because they got money, or just those people because they've got a severe disability. It applied to everybody across the board. Now, of course, bearing in mind we're dealing with planets with a global government. Okay, if you've got a group of people that are starting to cause that kind of talk, okay, because the system has worked for literally thousands of years, actually, in all fairness, a lot longer than that, as I gather, because it's been working, the moment somebody comes in, okay, and starts on your planet going, we should overthrow, we should take over the consortium. The moment that gets started, usually what happens is somebody turns around, pulls the trigger, and that's the end of the guy discussing it. Out the window there, Storm. Storm goes, if you live in a round tower, where do you stick the kids? So we are looking, you take a look at it, they had 12 people. Now, the thing with the town council of 12, number one, okay, only one member of any race was ever put on the council. Never were the two on the same council. Okay, and of the people that were being elected, they had the whole catch was, are you non-prejudice? Not did you, not did you, do you have different ideas than the majority, but are you non-prejudice? Are you non-judgmental? Will you look at the situation for what it is? The one that fits that best is the one that gets moved into the council. Okay, meaning there are not that many people that are really qualified. Amongst humans, the prejudice and the favoritism is insane. Okay, so you got this circle of 12. Now, the reason they've got backups, okay, is because let's say somebody comes to the council with a problem, and they happen to be one of the races that's currently sitting on the council. Okay, the one that is of their race voluntarily steps down and lets somebody in the second wing come in. Okay, it is the primary council is still the primary. They're still the ones that handle all the decisions. But, okay, you have 36. Now, bear in mind, we've got over 2,500 different species. So, only having 36 in the entire council chamber, okay, is a pretty small little problem. Okay, and yes, there's all kinds of tiers of councils and jurisdictions and what have you. But for the consortium to run the entire system, they've got 3 tiers of 12. Okay, and none of the different tiers have members of the same race. And rest assured, with an excess of 2,500, you actually don't have a problem finding 36. Okay, now it's probably more species than that at this point, because the consortium is constantly evolving. Now, here's the neat thing about it. What happens is a person comes in to discuss an issue for their planet. Okay, they're elected, and how the choice of who comes in to talk to the council, that's up to the individual planets. Somebody comes in with all the information and goes, here's the problem we're facing. Here's what we're trying to do. How do we deal with it? Whether it's, can you help with negotiations to set up a trade connection? Or can you help them understand that we're not interested in a war with them? Whatever it is, they come in and the council goes, okay, now, We don't have any of the council sitting here debating this on as a member of your species. Okay, that way there is no possibility of of prejudice, of favoritism, of a 2 against 1 thing. Now, it goes through the whole 9 yards, and then there's a vote. In the event of a tie, as in 6 of the council going, yes, let's go with it, and 6 of the council going, no, we're not going to back that. At that point, the individual speaker that came with the problem gets to make the final decision. He goes back to his government and says, they're at an impasse. We've got to make up our own mind. Because here's the reality behind it. In consortium space, okay, you must follow consortium law. In individual member local space takes precedence. Okay, in other words, if in local space, if somebody breaks the law and you're allowed to kill them right there on the spot, in local space, that's how that goes. Okay, there is no coming to consortium and going, hey, we don't like the fact that they've got the death penalty on our planet. Can you come and help us bring that to a close? The consortium will look at you and go, okay, here's your help. Here's what you want to put out. And they won't tell them specifically. They'll go, here are the things you've got to have in place that you've got to consider. Are these being equally distributed, equally applied in all cases? If not, you've got a problem. But the consortium will not come in and go, oh, you're not happy with Mom's decision, so we're going to step in on your behalf. Not going to happen. If, on the other hand, you come into consortium space and do something wrong, you can bet there's going to be some interesting side effects. By the way, there is no extradition. In other words, if you break the law in your world, okay, and the person that broke the law gets off world and into consortium space, you cannot, your world cannot turn around and go, we're going to another world to bring them back. Rachel, how you doing? Glad you could join us. There are, however, consortium bounty hunters. And they're not bounty hunters per se. They are simply law enforcement that will go on to any one of the planets, collect up the offending individual, and take them back so you have to deal with it. Because many criminals, in case you haven't figured it out, figure by jumping a border, they can avoid punishment. The consortium will not back up an individual's cry for, oh, I'm being mistreated. Probably. Okay. But the consortium is there to hold the whole system together, not an individual household. That's the thing you got to realize. And yes, again, the people that are being sanctioned by the consortium to go and retrieve missing people. Okay, now some of you my age will remember this. Okay, when I was going to school, we had truant officers. Okay, and what those officers did was if a kid was skipping out of school, those officers, that's literally all they did, was they went around, collected up the kids that were not going to school, took them back to deal with the problem. Okay, same thing with the consortium's enforcement. Okay, but let's just assume for a moment that Earth had intergalactic capacity, which to the best of my knowledge right now, they do not. Okay, humans could not go over to another planet and forcibly retrieve one of their own. That's one of the consortium laws. You don't get the options in. It's like, okay, you want to become a member of the consortium, here's the rules. Okay, Now, the reality of it is, when you're looking at the actual consortium, they literally lay it out and go, okay, here are the guidelines. This is what we deal with. Okay. Thank you very much for that, LA. The neat thing is this. Now, of course, there's this other thing. Well, how long are members of the council in place? Okay. And remember that thing I mentioned about them running a binary system? Well, here's the thing. I cannot give you a translation. Okay. Like this issue of, one cycle is X terran years. I can't give you that. I've never bothered trying to figure it out, and I'm not about to try. Okay, but what they do, let's see, is when somebody is elected to be a member of the council, whether it's first tier, second tier, third tier, doesn't matter. Okay, and yes, you literally put in time in the first, as a matter of fact, what do we got here? Okay, now, their method, and I'm just going to talk in terms of consortium methodology. Okay, what is that, 384? Yeah. Okay, in one tier, when you first get elected, you get elected to start with in third tier. Okay, and third tier, you get into it, you are there for 128 cycles. Okay, at the end of that 128, you may be moved into second tier. Now, there are things that will shift that around, but we'll stick to the basics first. Okay, so you're running 128 cycles in 1 year for the first tier. Then you run another 128 cycles in the second tier. Now, you're still not at the point of making the final decisions. So you're spending 256 cycles learning the way the consortium operates. Okay, you sit in on all the council meetings, and bear in mind, they are not done. The whole thing with the council meetings is they're not done in one physical room. And the reason for that is you don't want to have a bunch of flesh bags sitting in a magma chamber. This is just not going to go well. Okay, at least not for the flesh bags. Now, that said, okay, you got 128 in tier 1, another 128 in tier 2. Then you find out whether you end up going into tier 3. Okay, but there are some modifications that happen in that. Okay, as you get moved up, so you have served, when you get into tier 1, you're automatically committing to do 384 cycles, unless something goes sour. Okay, and Philip, yes, the meetings can be extremely, extremely exciting. Okay, and yes, they do have a universal translator. Okay, as in a computer that does it, but they also, every one of the races, okay, every one of the species on the council has an interpreter with them to be able to handle the other side of things. And we'll get to that in a little while. Maybe not tonight, we'll see. So you got 384 cycles. Needless to say, they do not elect or appoint people that are in the latter part of their years into the council. They just don't do it because you don't desire the council to die off due to old age. It kind of creates a bit of a problem for continuity. But when you take that many different viewpoints, and I'm talking species viewpoints. Okay, there is a lot of time. You know, like with humans, it's cute. I'm a member of the UN or I'm a member of the government. I'm going to take 6 months off and do nothing. Once you enter the consortium council line, you don't have any time off. Okay, you barely have time off to deal with family issue. Okay, although family is one of these things that because many species are very tied up in the idea of family, okay, you can absolutely go, look, my son's sick, I gotta go deal with him, or whichever way it goes. Okay, or, dad's dying, we've got to have him on the dinner table, the whole family's getting together to honor him. These sorts of things do take into consideration. But this is why with the computer, with the binary link up, you can put all the information in, you can track what's going on and get moved over. Now, here's the kicker to it. Humans still have this problem. The further off and the further away you are, the longer a message takes to get there, which is very true. But the consortium doesn't have that problem. Their technology is far better than that. So you do have ongoing interaction. And yes, some species have problems. Not technically, not actually prejudice, so much as there are some individuals that end up in council. And for one reason or another, a feud between them and another person comes up. They just don't like them. Okay, we'll just put it that way. We're not talking prejudice. Just because somebody doesn't like another person does not mean they're prejudiced. It means they don't like them. Now, the consortium has its own way of dealing with it. The council will deal with it and go, okay, you guys are either going to put your differences aside or we're going to remove the problem as we see fit. And then it goes into a council debate with the two people involved not getting a vote. Okay, anybody that's been involved in the conflict does not get to vote. And then we go then we go back to that thing of the majority rules. One or both may get evicted, but what won't happen if they're not getting along is both won't stay. Castle, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Okay, so this is why it works. This is why it holds together. I'm doing not bad there, Castle. Thanks for asking. This is why the consortium works. It is also why they are talking, there is communication between the consortium and humans, as they do with many other races, where it's like, okay, you're asking to become part of this. That's no problem. But here's the things you guys have to work on. If you're not willing to work on this on a global level, then you're really not going to be of much use to us up there. So we will, and it may take you 1,000 years. We don't know. That depends on you guys. Okay. So the consortium is going, here's the guidelines you've got to follow. Here's the rules that you've got to stick with. Your own laws, they're yours. Somebody from another planet comes, those laws apply to them as well. Because what the consortium is bent on is making sure that nobody is being told how to live their own life. Okay, they're just being told these are the rules if you're becoming part of the consortium itself. These are the rules that will get you through the door. But you gotta sort them out first. The simplest way of looking at it is in a black tie event. Okay, like in a Hollywood black tie event. You're told you want to go into this restaurant, it's black tie. You're told point blank, put on a black tie or you're not coming in. They don't say, if you've got this much money, you don't need a black tie. They go, black tie, entry. No black tie, no entry. Okay, consortium is the same way. One world government. potential entry. You have fighting in the government, in your own government, you're not getting to be a member yet. Not to worry, for those of you that don't know, that's salt. Just be grateful I don't have one of the great big blue blocks. What do we got here? Oh, there we go. Castle just saying happy equinox. Actually, it is really. Strawberry moon? See, I don't pay any attention to that at all. I look up there. I know it's not made of green cheese. But the consortium takes a look at it and goes, okay, on your planet, in your empire, these are special holidays. That's great. But if you're a member of the council, you don't get the option of going, oh, I want to celebrate this. Unfortunately, there's no problem with attempting a bribe. People are known to take money when it's offered to them without a problem. Here's the kicker: if you change your vote based on a bribe, then what ends up? I'll have to get to that. I'll get to that issue in a little while. Probably not today, but we will deal with that, Castle. Castle goes, I think the moon is an ancient redundant craft. I'm just making a note to make sure we get to that at some point. I doubt it'll be this week, but we will keep an eye on it. Just marking down. Okay. Now, here's the thing with bribes, Philip. Okay. You got to remember, by the time that a species gets to be a member of the consortium, the concept of bribery, it's still there. But here's the thing. Somebody says, I'll give you 1,000 units if you vote this way. That is a form of prejudice. You're immediately, the government official is immediately, they're not penalized. They're told, okay, keep the money. Doesn't matter to us. You're no longer on the council. And then move new people in. Okay. That way the person is putting money as a priority. Okay. And taking money to adjust their outlook. What ends up happening is all of a sudden they find they don't have access to that kind of power wielding. So most people are not willing to take money for it because they've already figured out, and humans are slowly piecing this together, you can't take it with you. So ultimately, that's how they deal with the bribe. Attempting a bribe is no problem, but it's generally looked at as, you want to give me money? Great. You want me to vote that way? Convince me that's the right way, or get your compatriots to sit down with me and convince me that is the way to go. Not just, here's 1,000 units, okay, and I vote for you. Doesn't work that way. That is very, very, and understandably, antiquated thinking. Okay, humans are, well, politely put, infantile. Which is another reason why they are not part of the consortium yet, but are simply being protected from overtaking. Humans will get there. Okay, there's no question there at all. But what we're looking at is a setup whereby you've got 384 cycles that you're being in the active council. Now, if you think about that, 384 divided by 12. 384 divided by 12. Now, that would make, if you think of cycles in terms of a month, you're still looking at 32 years in office. This is why they don't tend to put, they don't tend to put young people in place. But we are not talking 32 human years. We are talking 32 binary years. Okay, you understand how that works. The reason for that is so the people that are making the decisions actually are around when that same problem happens. That's the nice little part about it. Now, in the consortium, we have a simple little situation. It is done very much on a democratic standpoint. It is not done by appointment. Okay. Now, the appointment part comes in certain species. Yeah, undoubtedly there, Philip. Not the only one I can remember, but that's beside the point. Philip just says human Earth years are the only ones I can remember experiencing. Absolutely. Now, there is a period of appointment, and that comes on the individual empire standpoint. Somebody is elected to go in, to become a member of the council. They may in their own empire, they may appoint the people that are going to go into the council. They're going to apply. But the council has final say. Because when you're looking at the overall picture of it, the consortium figured out I have no idea their council. I am not, much as I watch Star Trek, I did not look into any of that. But you can bet your bottom dollar Darth was actually based on somebody or some event in human history or in human current history. I don't know. But I'm not the person to talk to about the movies. I saw all 9 of them at the big theater. Absolutely. But I have no idea. Now, when we take a look at the appointment, the appointment of the backup council, that can happen on the Empire. They get it their own way. They go, you're the one we feel best represents our planet. So you go and make a plan and bid. We'll back you in becoming a member of the council. Now, here's where it gets entertaining. If you're elected as a member of the council and then you do something wrong, there are 2 things that happen. 1, if you break council law, in other words, you start you start exhibiting prejudicial approach or favoritism to a given species or against a given species, you will have one of 2 options. You will be asked to step down from office once. If you're asked to step down again, it's a majority rules thing. If you are asked to step down and you refuse, you do have that option, but here's the kicker to it. You refuse stepping down voluntarily, the consortium will simply terminate you. The consortium is very black and white. This is the law. There are not extended sentences or shortened sentences depending on who you are. There are literally, there's the law, there's the punishment. You don't like the punishment, don't break the law. And again, the laws that you're dealing with, be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. Ouch. Okay, so that's just the way that works. There is no, by the way, they really, in the consortium, especially where it comes to the council, they don't have a bunch of lawyers. Okay, now, there was a time when this used to really, when what's going on in the chat room right now used to get under my skin. And this is why I turned around and talked to Storm in LA and said, look, I can't handle the stress. Last time I bought into that kind of thing, I had a heart attack. Not interested in another one. They're painful. I'm not playing that game. This is why I'm leaving it to LA and Storm. Okay, because this has to be, again, it's a very simple issue of here's the guidelines, and that's where it sits. Now, absolutely, if you've got a suggestion for a change that may matter or that might be usable, I will tell you right now, Storm and LA are the two to approach. Because I'll tell you approach me, I'm going to look at you and go, I'm turning it over to Storm and LA anyway. Okay, because they know what works from their end. Philip, this is probably one of those things where you just kind of sit in the dark and leave it that way. That's pretty much the way I operate. But the consortium itself is black and white. There are no lawyers to say, oh, but he was doing this for this reason. This is what he meant. It's simple in the consortium's eyes, and it's worked for thousands of years. Okay, be clear with your intentions. Don't bother with this idea of, well, I meant something else. If you meant something else, imperative you say something else before it becomes a problem. Now, that being said, in the consortium, when you're on the council, yes, there are times when you may have to step down, maybe because you're of illness. Okay, maybe you just can't do the job anymore. Now, you are contracting for a 384 cycle commitment. But this is a contract that you cannot fight to extend. You can fight to extend it, but the trick with fighting to extend it is, let's say you put the 384 in and you really want to go back into it. Okay, you can do that. But once you're cycled out on your 380, at the end of your 384th cycle, you're cycled out of primary council. At that point, start petitioning on your own planet, in your own empire. Start petitioning to get back into the council. And there are people that can do that. Okay, one race that comes to mind is quite literally some of the energetic races. Okay, they can do that. When you're dealing with a corporeal race like a human, they're not going to make it back into the next one. And this is assuming that they get into it at all. Well, that's the thing, LA. 70 to 80 years, which is what humans are. I don't have a translation for the galactic cycle. Okay, I've been trying to figure that out for years. I'm still working on it, and I may eventually get to one. The neat little part about it is, let's say you only live 70 or 80 years. Odds are you're not going to get into the full 384. But here's where the consortium sorted the problem out. They will take a short lifespan like that, and they'll go, okay, no problem. Okay, now this is where humans, for instance, okay, set up backup people, the next in line. If this guy drops out, we've already got the next one cycled. So a human is still a human or another race with a short lifespan is still sitting on the council. Again, it eliminates the problem of a lopsided setup. And yes, I'll stick to human for a moment. Now they're not there yet. Okay, but humans that are lined up to go into the council, if their lead passes, they can be selected from the same bloodline. There's no problem there. But the qualifiers of non-prejudicial and prejudicial approach is still, I can say, critical consideration. Now, if the humans, for instance, pick somebody to go in and that person is not accepted, then the consortium goes to the next human in line. So you may have 5 or 6 people in line in a short lifespan race, in a short lifespan species that sits back and hopes to get in as it were. Oh, that's fantastic, Philip. Philip's just letting us know his grandma's cousin had his 100th birthday a few months ago. He's still active. This is great. I'm aiming for 137 myself. And there's a reason for that. But the consortium itself, ultimately, that's what you're looking at. I was working it out here. And again, the reason that you come up with that whole 128 is take a look at binary. 1, 2, 3, 4. You get the idea. Actually, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see where I'm having a problem? My hand doesn't work that way. Yeah, I thought so. The oldest one I came across there, Philip, about 25 years ago, there was an African American that lived to 149. So I know it can be done. Okay. And we can go back to all kinds of references. But the consortium itself, let's understand one very important factor. The consortium is absolutely against taking over another planet. They will certainly extend a hand and go, okay, let's bring them into the consortium, into the fold. Absolutely they will, without handing them any war weapons, okay, and without handing them anything that will create that kind of a discrepancy. They work on communication lines and ideas. Okay, but one of the things that the consortium found was literally the requirement of understanding people. This is where, and I'll get into this one, a lot. The oldest today, as far as I understand, is 122. Okay, but something we got to realize, especially when it comes to humans. Okay, human scientists figured out that every cell in the human body is replaced every 7 years. With this in mind, every one of you is no older than 7 years. Okay, no matter how gray you look. But it doesn't change all in one shot. Okay. So the consortium has no interest in taking over a planet. A new planet that they come across. And yes, it gets complicated. Okay, but let's see if I can put this in perspective. You've got an empire. It's just one world. That's all it's got. Okay, so that world has its own empire. It's a one world empire, one world government. You desire to come in, you're showing them what you're following, what you're told. Absolutely. In the door you come. But the first step is a global government, meaning everybody realizes, or at least the governing bodies realize, that every member of that species is of value. No matter where they live on the planet, no matter who they crawl into bed with, who they worship, no matter who they, how much money they've got. You get the idea. That is a societal thing that has to take place. And right about now, I don't know if you guys realize this, but mankind is nowhere near that level of understanding. That's the thing we have to look at. And once you get that sorted out, then we turn around and we go, okay, now you've got that part. Now we'll bring you into the Galactic Consortium. Now here's the thing. You've got a single planet. You're now in the consortium. You're now a species member. Fabulous. No problem. But your planet's getting full. And there is a planet locally that you'd like to colonize. Okay. Or maybe it's not local. Maybe you're striving to colonize another planet that is not inside another individual's empire. Okay. Then let them, go out, do your research, report to the consortium planners. Exactly, Philip. And this is one of the big things you have to realize. Okay, Philip's just letting us know that some parts of the world don't even have wireless phone service yet. And again, this is one of those things that mankind's technology, as good as it is for humans, is backwater. Okay, so we are looking at a situation where, with a member planet, okay, you've got your first planet. Now, there's a planet way over there you guys desire to explore, to colonize. Nobody else has laid claim to it. So we're going to take and we want to research it and see if we can actually colonize it. Now, there's no problem there. Okay, the consortium will look at it and go, okay, we'll mark that in the records. You're exploring it. Now, more than one race can choose to explore that planet at the same time. But here's where it gets to be complicated. Let's say, and we'll just use Star Trek terms because everybody knows them, or most people know them. Let's say humans desire to colonize a planet that the Vulcans are already exploring. Okay, so humans want to go and explore. Now, two qualifiers at this point. One, don't start a fight with the other researchers. Absolutely, figure out where you're going to be researching. Absolutely, that is done through communication efforts. Okay, in the event that two groups or three groups are trying to figure it out, okay, it is the group that comes up and says, okay, we've got a plan to make this work for us. The one that comes up with it first and goes to the consortium and says, here's a plan that we've already accommodated. We've got these ideas worked out. Okay, we're going to sink our efforts into it. The first one that goes to the consortium and says, this is what we're doing, and here's our plan. That one race, let's say, like I said, I'm just going to use Star Trek terminology because most people recognize it. Okay, so you got humans, Vulcans, and Klingons all vying to explore and to colonize the planet. Okay, they're all doing their research. They're all doing their testing. And let's assume that the Klingons figure it out first. They go, okay, this one we can work with. Here's our plan to colonize it, to dedicate, bring it up to speed, to make sure the people that are moving in there are still following consortium law. Then the consortium goes, hey, that planet's yours. Now your empire covers two planets and the travel distance between them. Okay, sometimes that travel distance, because of gravitational fields, that travel distance, you may go, I'm going to a planet. Now, the planet's over here, and I'm starting here. But to go over there, because of gravitational fluctuations, wormholes, that sort of thing, we're going to go this way and then circle back around to get it. All of that transportation line is now that in the Klingon Empire's space. Okay, inside that corridor, you follow Klingon law. Outside that corridor, Klingons included, you follow consortium law. Hopefully this is making sense. Okay, now again, there are, like in the case of the Throthosians, they expanded too fast. And what they did when they expanded too fast, which is what Earth is kind of on the verge of trying to do. Okay, the correction, not the Throthosians, the Tharkon. Okay, they expanded their empire too quickly, and they ended up with a very long trip that they couldn't maintain. So they turned around and they moved everything they could over there to set them up, right? Dropped off as much gear as they could and announced to the consortium, these are our people. Okay, we cannot continue to support them. So we've set them up to take care of themselves, but they are now independent inside consortium space. Usually by the time, when that happened, in all three of those cases, they were already well-versed and already following karmic law. They were already following consortium law. So the consortium came out to them and went, okay, this is your area now, and we work from there. And the cycle repeats. Okay, as you can see, they've got a very, very well laid out system. Yes, the punishment for breaking their law, brutal as all get out. A lot of innocent people get killed. Kind of happens when you blow up a planet. A lot of people die. There's very few races that if you blow up their home planet, that as individuals they survive. Although I know of a couple that would. So hopefully this is making sense. Now, the consortium, what they do not pass on to other people is they do not pass on to other species, is they do not pass on they don't pass on weaponry or tactical know-how because they're not interested in promoting war. See, the neat thing with the consortium is this. Push them into a corner so they feel they have to react. They're not going to take decades to figure it out. They may take a few years to get to you. Okay. But, this attempt was made. Okay, terminate the planet. Now that we've had the whole debate thing, now the planet gets terminated. Yeah, no doubt there, Philip. Philip just going, I would survive, but my host body would not. Yeah, pretty much. The neat part about it is the consortium already knows how the whole soul thing works. And by the way, whatever species you are, whatever race you are, you still have a soul. The driver is still the thing that gets held responsible. The fact of the matter is, the laws are laid out very simply. You break this law, or by association, somebody on your planet is starting to talk about this. Okay, that's part of your society, and this is why the consortium insists on a global government, not a dictatorship. Okay, and yes, there's that other thing we should get to, sort of. We are going to be looking at different races and what have you as the week goes on. This is just about the layout of the consortium itself. Okay, now there's this neat little issue of how you get paid. Because humans are still caught up in that primitive thinking of how much money do I make? Well, you don't. Consortium uses hours of work. Okay, you put in X hours of work, you get X hours of goods, or you get X hours of freedom. Now, here's the thing: you put in X hours of work, your accommodation's already accounted for. Your food of your diet is already taken care of. We're talking about what you're earning in order to have the luxuries of life. And yes, you can petition for more work hours or less work hours. But when you're on the council, you're locked in. You decide everything goes on hold, aside from family. Okay. But everything else gets put on hold. And your dedication for the next 384 cycles is on that issue. Okay. It is to put the consortium first, not your own well-being. Okay. Although your health is critical, and this is why you've got a lineup of people. But the actual council, they're only in council. You're only dealing with 36 members in a council meeting. I think, and I'm probably wrong on this, but I think the humans in the UN have something like, and somebody can give the actual number if they know, but in the UN, I think there's something like 147, representatives in the council, in the UN. In the consortium, you've got 36 with 36 translators. And that's it. A whopping 72. Only 12 of the council actually vote on anything. Okay, everybody else is there to put their input in, to offer their observances, and to state their opinions. But only the primary 12 are the ones that actually make consortium law. Okay, as you can see, it's quite evenly laid out. Now, of course, why the 12? Well, I gotta go back a little on that one. Philip, thank you. Philip says there's 193 in the United Nations. Now, you look at that. 190. Oops, don't do that. 193 divided by. So, I just did a real quick calculation there. What that says is that to run this world, we've got 193 people. Okay. Now, to run the entirety of a 2,500 species, unit, we are looking at, it takes 2.6 times the number of people to run a world that's only got 8 billion as compared to one that has 2,500 species. Okay, many of them with more than one world. Matter of fact, most of them with more than one world. But the size of the empire does not buy you a seat on the council. Okay, in some countries on Earth, if you've got more people voting for you because you just happen to have a riding that has more people, that can put you in where the other person won't. That is not the way the consortium works. So ultimately you're looking at that side of it. Now, with that in mind, okay, that's all automated. There's more to it, and I am actually in the middle of documenting more of it. Right. But, matter of fact, come to think of it, just making a note to make sure I deal with it. Nope, that one. This one. Just making a note to make sure I can add it where I have to. Like I said, I keep these things handy because they help me stay somewhat organized. Now, the other neat little part of all of this. Oh, thank you very much, there, Ellie. I've just been informed we're down to 30 minutes. Okay. Yeah, Philip goes 193 in the United Nations, plus the Vatican as a permanent non-member observer. And that's the other thing. Okay. And when you take a look at it, the Vatican as a permanent non-member, that's no problem. In the consortium, a religion does not qualify unless the entire planet is following that religion, the religion won't have any bearing. Okay. The size of the religious community has no bearing on the consortium unless that particular religion is a global religion. Okay. If that's what everybody happens to be, so be it. But your membership in a religion, your participation in a given occupation, or a given income bracket, does not have any bearing on whether you get into the council. And this is why I say it really boils down to this: when you're dealing with the consortium, they've laid it out to me as non-prejudice, as non-segregatory as they can get away with. And rest assured, after several thousand years of this working, it works. Okay, this is why I say when I talk about what I'm doing, okay, like you'll notice on my bed here, okay, all the paperwork's gone now. I mentioned that was going the way of the dodo bird. It now has. Okay, now where did I put it? Could have sworn I had it written down. Oh, I know I wrote it down. And that's why I've got to get up. That's what I need the light, require the light for. Okay. We're at the half hour remaining mark. So I've already worked it out here. Today is 21st. Okay. Just to be clear. Now today we've been looking at the configuration of the consortium. Okay. If you've got questions, guys, okay, I haven't seen a lot of questions come through today, which is no problem. It's a lot of information. It's a very different way of looking at the world. But if you think of something that you wanted to add, that you did desire to ask about the council, okay, and about the configuration of it, absolutely make a note for yourself, bring it in tomorrow, and I will do my best to cover it. Okay. Failing that, tomorrow we are going to be looking at some of the consortium's technology. Okay, which should explain part of why humans they talk about, oh, we're going to chase them, we're going to beat them in a war. No, you won't. But you'll understand why tomorrow. We're going to cover some of the technologies, including the hybridization program and how that actually works. Okay, but the consortium, you got to remember, it's not just one planet. We are talking about 2,500 species plus, and very few of them, comparatively, are actually bipedal. Okay, bipedal, bipoodle. I don't know if the poodle would bi, but okay, So we're going to deal with technology tomorrow. Then on Sunday, oh, there we are. On Sunday, we are going to be dealing specifically with some of the major races. Okay. And for those of you that actually already have a copy of this, absolutely you'll be able to ask. Okay. That's on Sunday. Then Monday we'll be dealing with some of the big programs. And actually, now that I've looked at that, this is why I laid it out. On Monday, we'll be dealing with the hybridization program and exactly how that all comes about. Okay, but you got to remember, we're only taking, essentially, we're striving to cover several thousand years of evolution in 10 hours. I'm not sure if we're going to get a real big, solid package here. But you may be happy to know I am going to document this stuff, and I will be including it in the written form in the Positive Perspectives over the next several months as well. It's just one of those expansions that's happening. Finally figured out how to link all three of my aspects of life together. Okay, but the council is there to handle council law, not to sort out individual planetary disputes. And especially if the planet has their primary planet here and they've expanded onto this one, and now there's a civil war between the two planets. This happens, but the consortium will not step in and go, oh, we'll help you sort it out. They will simply red light the district and go, okay, for the rest of the consortium, I'm just going to say Earth and Mars. Okay. Earth colonizes Mars and they're in conflict. The consortium will simply go, okay, that empire is now a war zone. You cannot go in. If you go in and you participate, you help them, you pick a side and you can, if you want to join their war, okay, using their technology, okay, and you're throwing in your individual lot with that particular race, okay, for whatever the outcome is, that's your call. But you are absolutely forbidden to go in and take new weaponry in. Should I put my glasses over there so I can't see? Yeah, well, in all fairness, Philip, Mars did lose, but Mars didn't lose to humans or mankind. Okay, Mars had its own problem. On the other hand, Mars is still occupied. I'm not debating that Mars is a little bit of a dust bowl right now. Honestly, Philip, I don't rightly know. I have no doubt they probably, Philip's just asking, does the consortium have an arch nemesis? The best I can tell you is the consortium on the whole is not at war with anybody. Not that I'm aware of. Okay. They literally have their own boundaries and they expand as other races reach out to them. Okay. But you got to remember, and this is why the consortium does not have, as you call it, an arch nemesis. Humans seem to think on the whole of, okay, I'm this, those people don't necessarily agree with me, so we've got a war. Okay, therefore, the more advanced civilizations have the same problem. This is not the way it works. Okay. I can understand the thinking, and that's why I said, yeah, I'll definitely answer it if I can. But when you're looking at a war, any empire-wide war, The consortium simply goes, this section, it's now red light. You go into it on your own risk. Okay. If you go in and you take your ship with you, if you go in and you bring your weaponry to bear in a local war, okay, your ship will be absolutely terminated. Okay. And depending on other variables, you may just have caused your entire species to have a problem. Okay. Especially if word gets back that you're joining the war with your technology came authorized by your own government. If that's the case, then we go back to that first thing. Take out the planet housing the primary government, secondary, and tertiary. Okay, this is where things get to be really brutal in human terms, but very black and white and very simple to understand. Okay, it's a case of here's the law, break it, you're now toasted. There's no problem. Well, there is. Okay, now, like I said, on Monday, we're going to be dealing with various technologies, various different organizations. And yes, the trade union will be one of them. Frost Kitten, long time no see. How you doing? So the consortium is a trickle-down setup. They've set it up here, and then everything down below it. It is not, understand, the consortium is not, everything starts down here and works its way up. Once you get to the top, they make the changes and they make the changes and then filter it down through the rest of their empire. And this is something that has worked for thousands of years, much like mankind has managed for, in their case, usually tens of thousands of years. I just don't have a time frame for you. Of course, you got to remember, in today's world, I have trouble keeping an eye on the actual time frames that happen on Earth. And let's face it, they're a lot shorter. But again, if you've got questions that come up, that you've thought about and haven't had a chance to ask, okay, if you've got questions, absolutely bring them. Uh-oh. And what did I just see there? Oh. Oh, okay. The nice part about it. No, I appreciate that there, Frost. The fact of the matter is that things are running here. I've debated whether to keep going. And every time I've debated it, a lot of people have said, no, don't quit. So I figured, okay, let's not quit. But I had to throw safeguards in. Now, the consortium is real simple. Okay. Philip, I'm going to defer that. I cannot give you a specific race, but I will tell you this. There is more to the pyramids than what you're aware of. But I am making a note here. Right there. Remember I said I keep notes so I can actually cover it? Pyramidal communication lines are a very real thing. By the way, so is the Stargate system. But I will have more detailed information for you on both of those on Monday. Okay, because that's technology. Okay, and like I said, I'm doing my best to take several thousand years and condense it into 10 hours. Well, What have we got? Oh. And we have now, that way we can cover that side of it. The nice part about it with the consortium, they literally are designed so no matter who you are, if you're a pauper or you're a multi-billionaire, you're an intergalactic superstar, you have the same value in the consortium council's eyes. Okay. And all the units in the world won't matter. It will not sway their decisions. Okay, that's just something you have to realize. Humans are still caught up in a lot of things, but they'll get through it eventually, or they'll blow themselves apart. Doing my best to work on that side of it. Like I said, I am taking this information, and I will be writing about it in positive perspectives, because there is a lot of information to work with. Okay. The other thing you got to realize, like I'm sure somebody's going, well, can we sit in on the on the council meetings? The answer there is real simple. Oh, Frost Kitten's going, like Bruce Lee said, you don't like to look upon myself as a star because that is a crystallization. That's an interesting way to put it. Well, I will tell you, Philip, I like your thinking. I'm not sure what a perfect pizza topping would be, though. See, myself, I like pizzas that have anchovies. I know a lot of people that hate anchovies. Okay. So I don't know if there is a perfect one, but the reality of it is every member of the consortium, and especially every member of the consortium of the council, has no preferential treatment to anybody, no matter what they are. And that's both on, in council and in public when they're out and about. Okay. There's no way, if you're a member of the council, there's no way you could get away with being on the council and being all properly, demonstrative and what have you. And then in your private life, you're evicting people from their homes just so you can make more money because they weren't paying you enough. Greed has no place in the consortium. See, where it comes to work in the consortium, they literally have a simple man hours way of calculating. Okay. And that doesn't mean human. That means anybody putting the effort in. This is where it becomes an interesting setup. But hopefully this is making sense. And again, if you've got questions, if for tomorrow, if you've got questions that you didn't voice here or that come to light. Oh, it absolutely does, Philip. Okay. Philip's just saying greed has hazardous side effects on karma. So do a lot of things, but you're absolutely right. Okay. And the one thing we have to remember here is questions are welcome. Okay. Providing, and I won't say there are no stupid questions. There absolutely are. But questions designed to create a problem, as you saw tonight, will result in side effects. The fact is, there are some legitimate questions that didn't get voiced tonight. I don't know what all questions you guys have. Yeah. Yeah. LA goes, I put anchovies on a pizza and there will be revolt here. Right. And then Storm comes back and goes, no revolt, LA, just revulsion. You know, the nice part about it is my brother used to put them on it all the time, and he'd look at me and go, hope you don't mind, you know, but I put anchovies on the pizza. I looked at him and I went, oh, I'm sorry, was that supposed to be a deterrent? You know, although I will tell you that, what is it now? I forget what the heck the name of it is. You know, fish eggs, I definitely do not like. Taste way too fishy for me, and I understand why they do, but that's beside the point. Oh, caviar, that'd be it. Not a fan. But with the consortium, understand the reason it is set up on essentially a digital communication line. A lot of the people cannot be in the same room. Okay, and understand. Can you picture what would happen, assuming you take a Wailosh and a Holic and put them in the same room? You've got nothing but a very superheated sauna. It will cook a lot of people. Okay. So you cannot have them, by the way, just for your edification, that's a Wailosh being a water elemental and a Holic being a fire elemental. Put them in the same room, we now have a problem. They call it an easy bake sauna. You know, so this is why it is set up in a communication center, in a technological communication line. I know they absolutely wouldn't, Philip. And it was tried centuries back. It was tried where the Wayland tried taking the humans. Well, Wayland tried. There was another race as well. I forget the name offhand, but the Sea Elves also tried taking humans down to their world to communicate. And humans don't fare well when they're held underwater for any length of time. And where they can survive underwater, they don't survive the pressure. This is why technology becomes so important. And by the way, just another quick little side note. A member of council, if they are creating a problem, they'll get cut off, but the interpreter will not inherently get cut off themselves. And they'll still be able to sit there and work as liaison. Okay. What happens is the problem child gets moved out of the equation. Not everybody. Ultimately, Philip, yes. And that's one of those pieces of technology, as a matter of fact. That's one of those little pieces of technology. It's not technically, well, more to the point, it didn't start out as consortium, but the consortium did take the tech. They did accept the tech and modified it for various other areas. And again, that's one of those neat little technologies we'll cover on Monday. Well, that's not bad. See, I'm looking at how much time and just figuring out, because we got a lot of technology we got to deal with. All of which, by the way, is getting added to the races of the world. Okay. This is what I mean by when I'm talking about a lot of work to be done, I'm not kidding. But we are talking about, and we're down to the last 5. Philip, the answer is yes. We will be on tomorrow night and Sunday from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. PST. Okay, we're down at the 5-minute mark. This is why this is really helpful. Thanks, LA. So, with that in mind, thank you so very much for sharing your time with us tonight. Really appreciate it. Love the questions. I will be back again tomorrow. Okay. Again, 4:30 till 6:30 p.m. PST. Until then, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.